with having invocation. Sean Michael will come up and give us a brief prayer, and then go ahead and eat. Okay.
If you'd please bow with me. Gracious God, we're today mindful of Lenten season. We thank and praise you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, to forgive us for all of our sins. Father, make each of us an instrument of your grace. Weave us into community showing forth your power and tenderness. Bless us in our differences. Give us courage to stand together. Lead us to better know you and glorify each step of the journey of our lives. Thank you for the food we have partaken, and we pray that it will give us nourishment. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please go ahead and eat lunch and enjoy the little fellowship. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'd like to welcome you to the Wells County Chamber of Commerce State of the City quarterly meeting. Please continue to eat. Enjoy your lunch. We'll go ahead and get started with our program today. First, what I'd like to do is introduce our new members that are here today. With us today, and please, as I announced, please stand if you would. Pro Resources Staffing, Diane Smith and Ashley Fagner. Quality Car Care, Jenny Johnson. And also, for those who might be here for the first time, anybody here for the first time to a quarterly luncheon, if you would, please stand. Anybody here for the first time? You might hold on, don't sit yet. If you would, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself so we know who you are real quick.
Jordan Arnold with IND Financial as the banking officer. Reed Emerson with Burkhardt Advertising. Jared Kurtz, J.M. Kurtz and Associates.
Jared Gerber, General Insurance.
Kim Downey, City of Bluffton, Building Department.
Super. Well, welcome to your first meeting. First of many to come. I'd like to give you a little bit of a rundown of things to mark your calendar for. If you would, mark your calendars for the upcoming events. April the 7th, Coaching the Challenging Employee Workshop. So mark that down. April the 21st, Business Before Hours at the Helping Hands Pregnancy Center. April the 25th, through April the 29th, there will be an OSHA 30-hour general training session, and certainly see Aaron if you're interested in that particular program. Another announcement I'd like to make, Leadership Academy is starting to take applications for the 2016-2017 year. Should you or you know anybody at your place of employment is interested in learning more about the Leadership Academy, certainly, or applying for it, as well as getting information, please see Aaron about that information there. One thing that we'd like to do is, moving right along, is to let everybody know about the new voting process for this year. Roy Johnson, who is election board member, is here with us today, and he's going to give us just a brief summary of what the new voting process will be in our county. So, Roy, what's about that?
Surgically repaired knee made that step. I'm subbing for the county clerk, and she's in Indianapolis training for another thing near and dear to me. That's e-filing in the court system. So it's not nice to change things for old people, but one of the changes that you're going to have, well, we had last year for the city and the municipal elections, was voting at voting centers. And how many of you do not know anything about voting centers or haven't heard that we're voting at voting centers this year? Anybody? I'll sleep a lot better. Anyway, voting centers, we have a budget this year for publicity. The worst fear in my mind is for everybody to show up at 18 precincts to find out you don't vote there anymore. We're down to 5 voting centers for this year, and so it's important to know that your place voting has changed. It's even more important to know that we also have early voting. So this year you'll have an opportunity to vote the Thursday before Election Day between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Also the Friday before Election Day from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So those voting centers are going to be open on those days as well. So you're not stuck with Tuesday. In fact, we encourage you to vote early, not often, but early. And there's also voting at the courthouse. So From what we know from experiences of other counties, we need about a 50% turnout on early voting for this to work. Otherwise, I was raised on a farm. Otherwise, it's the same number of cattle going through an even smaller gate. So please take advantage of that convenience and vote at a voting center earlier. What I was supposed to actually talk about, my instructions are, what are we doing for publicity? So you probably, how many of you got your magnets to fill in your refrigerator with your grandkids' pictures and this and that? So that's one. We also have quite a number of flyers, and I brought a box of supplies that I'll have for you to take home. If you're a business person, you've probably got a poster that we encourage your businesses to put up, so to educate your employees as to where the voting centers are in early voting. We also have some tents to put up. Had I not gone to the Chamber Center, I probably would have put tents up if I'd been here when I thought I was going to be here. But we also are going to be renting the electronic sign by Walmart for, I think, 3 days. So hopefully the word will get out. But again, please help us disseminate the information that we are now voting at voting centers. It doesn't matter which of the voting centers you vote. Along with voting centers, we also have e-poll books. So when you go in to sign, if you voted in the municipal elections last year, this is old news. But if not, when you go in to sign, there'll be an iPad, and then you'll sign your name. And the key to the voting centers is that it's real time. So when you vote, all the other voting centers know that you voted there. So a lot of things new, but we hope that it will help increase our turnout. I think that traditionally Wells County's had a good turnout, but we want an even better turnout. More importantly, we want the voting to be more convenient for you. And hopefully in the long run it'll be a cost savings, but to me, as one of the members of the election board, it wasn't so much cost savings as much as increasing the convenience to the voter. So we hope you'll take advantage of that. We hope you'll have a good experience with vote centers. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about it.
All right, just a little bit of transition here. I think Roy was trying to shorten our program today, just a little bit. Usually when I'm in the process of introducing someone, I usually like to ask, how would you like to be introduced, or is there anything special I need to say? And certainly those that have been to our quarterly luncheons and heard the State of the City address, Ted said this is his 20th address to the city. So with having so much experience, Ted basically said, the best way to introduce me is just, here's Ted. But I'll go a little bit further and say I'd like to welcome the Honorable Ted Ellis, Mayor of our city, to the stage.
If you do no other good today, you called me honorable. I don't hear that often enough. So thanks for having me. And as Bill said, Roy about did you the biggest favor of your life, because he picked up my speech with his materials and went and sat down. I wouldn't have noticed that until I was here. I'm fully cognizant that IU started playing at noon today. So we have spotted a table here and a table there to give us periodic updates on the score. Can we hear the score as we start out? 16-15, IU 16-15. We'll be calling on you later. Go Hoosiers. I'd like to introduce a few people that are here with me today from the city, and we'll go down through these very, very quickly. And as I call your names, you'll just stand up, and if there's any applause, we can hold it till the end. Otherwise, we'll be here till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But these are people who do the work, who carry the real water for the city of Bluffton. We'll start out by Clerk Treasurer Tammy Runyon. Tammy's here, I think, with Michelle and Bree from her office. City Court Judge Bob Bate, Councilman John Wicker, Councilman Carl Perry, Councilman Jim Philibon. I don't know whether Melanie got here. I saw her tag out there. Melanie Durr had planned to be here. Chief Nathan Huss had planned to be here as well as the fire department, so that usually does not spell good news when I've got the police department and the fire department somewhere else. Parks Director Pam Vanderkolk, and our Lori and Brandy there with you, so we'll acknowledge them. John Oman, our Utility Operations Manager. Ernie Castle, our Wastewater Superintendent. Doug Huss from the Water Department, and his buddy Dave Hendricks. Jamie Allen from our Water Filtration Department. Street Commissioner Tim Simpson. Didn't see Tim. Yeah, Tim's there. And Building Inspector Ted Smith. And you met Kim, his able assistant. And, of course, Brenda Jackson, who really runs the city, and my wife, Marge, who runs me. So it all comes together in a plan. Thank you all for what you do, and please Well, we lost a dandy this last year in 2015. Baseball great Yogi Berra died in September. And among his yogiisms, which are legend, was his expression of gratitude in St. Louis when they threw him a Yogi Berra Day, and he began his remarks by saying, "I want to thank you for making this day necessary." Well, in the same vein, 2015 was an election year, and as such, 365 days ago, I stood here not knowing whether I'd be delivering this 20th anniversary State of the City address. Now, there's somebody out there, I'm sure, that says, well, he ran unopposed, what's the big deal? But if you're an observer of politics, especially this year, you just never know. So I just want to thank you for the honor of being your mayor. Thank you for the privilege. I'm still loving every minute of it. Well, almost every minute of it. I want to apologize first up, and this is not good public speaking, but for being a little bit of a wonk this year. So many of the happenings that we talked about last year were processes and were plans that are not particularly exciting, but much necessary. The old Vietnamese proverb that says, when eating fruit, remember the one who planted the tree. And certainly we need to remember today this, in the state of the city, it's a product, of many people, and many of you have had something to do with that, so I do thank you. Well, let's start out with statistics, all right? IU? 1918, Hoosiers still up? Michigan's up now. All right. Well, we won't, until I see you with a smile on your face, we won't call on you again, Brad. Statistics. The latest unemployment rate for the county is 3.8%. That makes us the 12th in Indiana. I know you can always find fault with how that data is collected and what the unemployment rate really means. But when compared with the 4.8% nationally or 4.5% in Indiana, we're still doing very well as a community. Our city property tax rate is by far the lowest of any county seat city in the adjacent counties. And you've heard me run that list year after year after year, and the results are still the same. Around the area outside of Bluffton, the city tax rates run from a low in Decatur of $1.05 to a high in Huntington of $2.49, and Bluffton's is just under 56 cents when compared to those. So that's even a shade down from last year. So we're doing pretty well, and indeed our cash balance on hand at the end of the year was a little over $19 million, And I always hesitate to even mention that with city employees in the room, because they're going to say, if we got $19 million, we can certainly be giving us a little more in a paltry raise during the year. The state law requires a lot of this money to be in silos, to be used only for specific purposes. Those of you who have been in government accounting know how that runs. But it does allow us some flexibility that many other communities don't have when we've got cash in the bank to fund our budgets and not wait for the next check to come in the mail or utility bill to be paid to pay our bills. One of those examples of silos is we have we self-insure for our employee benefits. And our self-insurance fund, which we started, how long ago has that been, Tammy? 2002, probably, somewhere around in there, has served us well to the point where we have not had a premium increase to employees since 2009. And we have a cash reserve in that fund of $2.5 million for 100 souls. That's very, very good indeed. So those are the statistics. Let me tell you a few stories. Last year at this time, we were talking about a $5 million project that made some very essential repairs to our wastewater plant, and that project is just now finishing up. When the grass begins to grow, they'll do the seeding and a few cleanup items, and we'll be done with that. We were very happy that we'd secured a 3% loan from the State Revolving Loan Fund to finance the project, but it got even better during the year. It fixed the decade-old problem that existed out in the McKinney-Paxson area, which is out 124. They had in that watershed, they had had the problem of untreated waste going into the Wabash River, and the state finally stepped up and offered to help us fix that problem and offered to finance it at 0% interest over 20 years. Not only that, to sweeten the pot and to allow us to make the necessary upgrades to handle the excess wastewater, they rewrote our loan that we wrote in 2014 to do the project we're still doing, and wrote the interest rate down to 0 on that. So we've got a lot of 20% or 20-year 0% money at work, all on the wastewater system. And that's Mayor Daley used to say in Chicago, never do anything below ground. You do everything up above ground so people can see where your money's going. But it's very necessary. And even with that, in addition to our low tax rate, we've got our accounting firm said you're doing a great job of controlling costs, and we've done that with a level wastewater, level sewage rate for almost 20 years. So our 5-year capital plan calls for repairs to that system even greater than what the level rate would stand, and City Council stepped up long ago and not only approved us going ahead with that 5-year capital plan, but voted to go ahead and pay for it, unlike some other units of government who shall be nameless federal government in financing what we need. Well, another story, and it gets better. How is IU doing now? Down 5. So do I speed it up to get it over with so we don't have to listen to this? I don't know. Anyway, another story, another part of our infrastructure will become the focus for our attention next year, and that's our water filtration department. Now, first let me draw the distinction between wastewater treatment, which takes care of the things that go flush, and our water filtration that pumps the water out of the ground, out of deep wells in the ground, and sends them, well, as a matter of fact, you had some of that water on the table in front of you today. That seems to be a terrible distinction for some people to internalize. Evidence of that fact was during the flood of 2003, our wastewater plant, which is behind the Pizza Hut, was threatened by floodwaters. The water filtration plant, which is out by Elm Grove Road, behind the cemetery there, was never in jeopardy. And we were a few long days into the flood. We were all tired. We were up spending about 23 hours a day dealing with the flood, when a reporter from the Indy Star came upon me at about midnight and asked me we were talking about the water filtration plant being threatened, and he said, well, when will the water be safe to drink? And I said, look, you can drink all the water you want in Bluffton, but if you have to, go to Fort Wayne to do it. And that's what got me quoted in the Indianapolis Star. Since the troubles in Flint, Michigan has had with its water supply, let me take this opportunity to give you a little reassurance that our water supply is very good and very clean and very helpful. Lead levels, which were all the conversation in Flint, Michigan, we're running at somewhere, depending on what expert you ask, between 200 and 1,000 parts per billion. That's parts per billion. Lead levels trigger federal action level at 15. So remember, Flint was at somewhere under 1,000. Federal action level is 15. Bluffton's lead level is 2.9. So we're way below the federal action level. You'll soon receive a report about all that, and if you were good at chemistry, you'll understand the report that you get in the mail. But it shows that by every measurement, our water filtration crew is doing a great job. Well, so our water supply is safe, but that processing facility out in near Elm Grove Road is 50 years old, celebrates its 50-year anniversary, and it's a tribute to good maintenance so that we can still process water and keep our infrastructure going. In fact, the system's even older than that. One of our storage tanks, the one down near Roush Park, celebrates its 70th birthday next year. And, well, do I have to tell some of you here that after 70, holding your water is a big problem? And that's true for a city as well as... I'll give a couple of you a little longer to think about that. Anyway, more stories. So, anyway, with the water filtration, we recognize that there's going to be a need to upgrade, and as the pressure comes to the federal government, we expect the statistics that are required are going to be tightened a little bit. The requirements are going to button us down a little more, and we need to start thinking about upgrading that system. Now, we've done a study, and it's probably going to take us 5 years to get there for a filtration plant that's either severely upgraded or brand new. But we need to start now and build for the future. So we're doing that. More stories. Reasons that it's good to be in Bluffton. In addition to Flint's water, sometimes we see, and especially this summer in Chicago, that they've had some serious problems with unrest and dealing with people who, especially those who have mental illness. I just want to point out that in response to that, Mayor Emanuel said that he was going to train 15% of the Chicago police in crisis intervention counseling. And briefly put, that's about a 40-hour course that deals with people who especially have mental and emotional issues and how to deal with and diffuse situations from a police standpoint. So that 15%, now they have, I think, about 12,000 police on the street, so that's still a large number. Simply put, though, Bluffton's police officers, that's part of our mandatory training when you sign on to the Bluffton PD, is you take that 40-hour course. So in so many areas, the city outshines our larger brothers and sisters. Do I need to point out, and I think Lee Von Gunton's here, the cooperation we had and entered into an agreement with Adams Wells to make us the first and still the only gigabit city in Indiana. That means that high-speed internet access is available anywhere in the city, and there's not a city in Indiana besides Bluffton that can brag about that. That's probably some of the reason that we were named last year by an organization to be one of the best, not one of the best, the best place to start a business in Indiana. Well, those are stories. And our collection of stories wouldn't be complete unless we talked about the drama. The drama, which is the interurban trail. Now, I heard some knowing chuckles in there. For those of you uninitiated, the interurban trail is a walkable, bikeable extension of the River Greenway from the Wabash River out to the intersection at Walmart and Lowe's. It's about a $1.5 million project. 80% of that would be paid by federal aid dollars. The Indiana Department of Transportation, though, to release funds, the bids had to come in at least under 115% of the engineer's estimate. 12 months ago, I stood right here and told you, and probably pointed to that Walmart Lowe's intersection down there, and told you that we were going to open bids on July 8th, and construction would begin just a short while after. The stage was set. The drama was about to begin. July 8th, the bids were open. Too high. The engineers in the Department of Transportation reworked the specs, set a new bid date for January 13th. January 13th, again, the bids were open. Still too high. They've literally gone back to the drawing board. They're trying to cut some things out, but still maintain the integrity of the trail. The next date is April 6th. I just don't know what's going to happen here. Now, you may have heard about the Regional Cities Initiative, and we were happy to see that the General Assembly is going to fund all 3 regions for this $42 million per region project to improve the quality of life in our region. Been asked if we might tap into that a little bit. And the answer is yes, but with a caveat that regional cities money will only match 20%, rather than the 80% federal funding we get from the Department of Transportation. Only 20% is available for regional cities. So whether we can even afford a regional cities grant is questionable anyway. Well, those are the stories. These are the kind of things that break a mayor's heart when you've got a project ready to go and just can't pull the trigger on it. But let me tell you, in addition to the stories and the statistics, I want to recognize some of the stars that make our community what it is today. I start out, and this is kind of a random list. It's in no particular order. But the YMCA started up in mid-April. John Jenkins and crew, and many of you qualify as crew or supporters of the Y. Opened its doors in mid-April, as I say, and you have brought us activity that enhances the mind, body, and spirit, and we appreciate that. Wells County Foundation spearheaded an attempt to raise money, and they raised $150,000 to repave the existing greenway. Another one of our stars is Ted Smith. Did you bring Ted with you? He's over here somewhere. Ted was our first, and still is, I might add. Yeah, Ted. They all get a little nervous. That's why we buy the food and bring them here. Those 20 city employees I introduced are the only ones that are glad to see me go along today, because they're all on the clock. But anyway, Ted's, without fanfare, initiated our building department at the beginning of 2015 and has made a very smooth transition. And also one of the heroes is Mike Lotzenheiser Jr. here, the area plan director, because Mike had the wherewithal to think, we've got the building department here and the plan commission here. That doesn't make it real easy to deal with sometimes when you've got to walk about 3 blocks and hope that everybody's in the place that you hope they're in. So Mike dealt with the county commissioners, more of our stars, and they've offered us free office space. Ted's moved over there, so if you have to apply for a building permit in Wells County, and especially in Bluffton, everybody you need to see is as close to you as I am to you today. So that makes them stars in my book. The county commissioners also won a gold star in my book for the spec building. It's been so long since we talked about that. But in cooperation with Rob Troxel and Bob Troxel, we got a spec building. For those of you who don't know what a speculative building is, it's bait. It's economic development bait. If we've got an empty building of a good-sized square footage, that'll attract some people to come look at us, whether they end up in the building or not. So we appreciate that effort with that spec building on the city's west side. IU. What again? IU's down 1, 3 minutes to go till halftime. We'll be done by halftime. Another star, Bluffton Now, the energetic group that spearheaded the community reinvestment program. They used county economic development dollars, and that community reinvestment program has matched over $100,000 in downtown improvements. Those are private downtown improvements. So that's working well. They also targeted another $150,000 for this year for downtown improvements, and those are all a dollar-for-dollar match. So we get $300,000 worth of improvements this year for $150,000. I think among the stars, and you've met them already, our city council, which approved that expenditure of county economic development dollars, along with collaborating with the Bluffton Wells County Library to help a startup business with the Tiger Tank program. City council again gets it, and I mentioned this briefly, but for deciding that we need to build our infrastructure, we need to get ready for the future, and took the unpopular step, and let me tell you, it's never great to raise sewer rates, but they stepped up to the plate and did that unanimously, and that's to be applauded. The Bluffton Utilities, the street department, to all of our utility crews who have been working through the winter. If you go down to Roush Park, it looks like we have an infestation of moles down there. But what they're doing is laying water lines and burying power lines and getting ready to install a splash pad at Roush Park, which will be our second. And they do that because the Parks Department got a grant for $188,000. It's a matching grant to upgrade that facility, to get rid of all the overhead wires and make it just a more pleasant place to be, upgrade the pavilions and things like that. Another one of our stars, speaking of parks, last year we were able to stand here and tell you that we had been recognized the best park system in Indiana. I guess they call it the best agency. But this year, in January, the Indiana Parks and Recreation Department recognized Pam Vanderkolt as the best parks director in Indiana. So we've got a lot going for you. Whether you measure it as statistics, or stories, or stars, I'm happy to report that the state of our city is great, remembering that Plato, the Greek philosopher, said the city is what it is because our citizens are what they are. And I thank you for that. Let's get to work. Down 2 minutes to go to the half.
Thanks so much, Ted. And certainly keeping everybody attuned on the basketball score to say this afternoon.
It's survival.
Survival. There you go. Certainly, it's encouraging to hear all these great things that are going on in our community, and it should make us all proud to be a part of this community in whatever way we are. Certainly, that's why you're here today. So, thanks again, Ted, for your comments today. A couple of quick things real quick before you leave. Thanks to the Timber Ridge staff for providing our meal today. Thanks to the Wells County Voice, who's live streaming our program today. Thank you. And as you leave, please recycle your name tags on the way out. Thanks again.